Hey, I'm Doug. Welcome to Backcountry Pilgrim. Today I want to talk about camp stoves, specifically the kind of stoves you would use for backpacking trips. Now, this isn't going to be a deep dive into any particular model or even stove type. Rather, this is just going to be an overview of the basic kinds of models that are out there to help you decide which features are going to suit your style of backpacking the best. So I'm just going to take my stoves out, fire them up, put them through their paces, and talk to you about some of the main features and benefits of each one that can help you decide what kind you might want to take on your next trip. Probably the most popular backpacking stoves being used today are your typical canister stove. These are going to be very small, ultralight stoves weighing under 4 ounces, sometimes only 1 ounce. They vary in price from some of the very least expensive to some fairly expensive ones. They use isobutane fuel, which is relatively easy to get. It's got good fuel efficiency. Their boil times are going to come in at around 3.5 minutes. The challenges are going to be that you don't have a lot of control on some of these stoves, so they're not going to be easy to do actual cooking with, although they are great for boiling. Other challenges include wind or freezing temperatures, where isobutane fuel doesn't do very well. These stoves are pretty simple and do not usually require too much maintenance, which is good because there's usually not a lot you can do for them. These stoves are usually very simple. You just screw them onto the fuel canister, open up the valve, and light them. Some will have igniters built in. These don't usually last terribly long, but the nice thing is all you need is a spark and you're good to go. If you want to go fast and light, and basically all you need to do is rehydrate dehydrated meals or boil liquid for drinking, this is a great option. Very similar to canister stoves are the integrated canister stoves. These have many of the same features as a typical canister stove, the difference being that they are much more fuel efficient. Their boil times are quite a bit faster, coming in at about 2.5 minutes versus 3.5. And this is due to the fact that they are an integrated system, bringing the pot and the stove together with an attached heat exchanger, which utilizes the fuel in a much more efficient way than simply trying to heat a pot on an open flame. While this greater fuel efficiency and quicker boiling times may seem like luxury features, it's important to keep in mind that the more fuel you need to cook, the more you need to bring, and that increases your volume and the weight of your pack as well. So depending on the length of your trip and the kinds of cooking you want to do in the backcountry, the extra weight, volume, and price of an integrated canister stove might be offset by its fuel efficiency. If you are looking for a stove that can handle practically any job, you might want to look at the liquid fuel stoves. Now, these may look old school, but they are still very much in use in the backpacking community, especially among those who are doing a little more hardcore backpacking than just walking down an established trail. The primary feature of these stoves is that they can use almost any kind of fuel available, from white gas, automobile gasoline, diesel, kerosene, or isobutane. This allows the user much more flexibility as to where they can attain their fuel, and allows them to plan more carefully depending on the kind of conditions they think they might be in. Some of these fuels will do much better in cold conditions than the typical isobutane. Now, these stoves are fairly heavy compared to the ultralight canister stoves, coming in at around 12 ounces. They are fairly large in volume, and they are fairly costly. They are also quite a bit more complicated than a canister stove, requiring priming and fuel handling that many people may not be comfortable with at first. They do offer good fuel efficiency. Many of them have a lot more control than a typical canister stove, and they can be maintained in the field. So for larger groups, longer hikes, and more flexibility of fuel and the kinds of places you can take your stove, a liquid fuel might be the way to go. On the other end of the spectrum from your more gas-type stoves, you have alcohol, solid, and wood stoves. These can be purchased independently, or they can be combined in hybrid stoves, such as one I'll be showing in a minute. If you're looking for ultralight, there is no beating an alcohol stove. These can weigh as little as a cat food canister. In fact, some people choose to make them out of those, which drops the price to practically zero. These can be anywhere from 1 to 4 ounces and are usually going to be the least expensive on the list. They use denatured alcohol as a fuel, which is nice because it is very easy to find. You basically just remove the cap, touch the fuel with a match or lighter, and the stove is on, even though it can be difficult to tell sometimes. The challenges of an alcohol stove are that they have extremely long boil times. You're not going to have any flame control at all. They do not do very well in wind, and because the flame is practically invisible, they can be somewhat dangerous if you are not very careful with how you handle them. They don't have great fuel efficiency, so some of the weight that you save in this stove is going to be reclaimed by the amount of alcohol you need to bring to cook. However, if you are looking for the fastest and ultra-lightest setup out there for your base weight, it's tough to beat the alcohol stove. Moving into the more solid type fuels, we have a solid fuel stove. These are lightweight, medium-sized stoves, kind of in the middle of the price range, and they use things like Esbit cubes as their fuel. Like an alcohol stove, the only thing you're going to be able to do with one of these is boil water, which is going to take a pretty long time, somewhere around 8 minutes probably. This kind of fuel can be difficult to put out, and so you may have to commit to just burning the cube down if you're going to use one. These difficulties may make it a deal killer for some people. However, solid fuel stoves do make pretty handy survival or backup stoves. In that same vein, we can look at wood stoves. These come in many varieties, but the one that I have is fairly lightweight, and although it is large, it is a collapsible stove that allows you to actually use wood material that you find in the forest as your fuel. This stove that I have by Shoo is actually quite budget priced and allows you to convert it to solid or alcohol fuel if you want to change things up. Now, if you decide to go with the wood fuel, once again, you're going to be looking at pretty much a boil-only, slow boil time of 5 to 10 minutes, stove that is not going to be very easy to put out and can get your pot pretty sooty. The nice thing, of course, is that you are simply using sticks from the forest, which means you're not going to be having to carry any fuel on your back, nor will you have to buy any at the store. For many, these benefits will make up for the lack of efficiency and control. Of course, with any of these stoves, like the alcohol or the solid fuel that simply rely on burning fuel in a box, there's not going to really be any maintenance necessary. And once again, using a wood fuel stove as a survival or backup stove might come in handy. If you are interested in more backpacking gear videos, stay tuned. You can check out the videos on these playlists and also subscribe to Backcountry Pilgrim if you haven't already. Give the video a like if you enjoyed it, and until next time, thanks for watching.